Close your eyes if you wish, and let your mind drift to the quiet, windswept fields of 1950s rural Wisconsin, where the air carries the scent of freshly cut hay, damp earth, and the faint tang of wood smoke. It's a time of small-town simplicity, of dairy farms and corner taverns. But beneath this pastoral calm lies a shadow of unspeakable horror. Hey everyone, welcome back. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It motivates me to make more content like these for you. And let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from today and what time it is for you. We love hearing of how many places are people joining us from. Tonight, we'll step into the world of Ed Gein, a reclusive farmer whose gruesome crimes shocked the nation. And imagine the chilling reality of working on his isolated property. We'll trace his macabre deeds, explore the unsolved mysteries that haunted his town, uncover the hidden networks of Wisconsin's bootleggers who thrived in the era's shadows. This journey is one of quiet dread and fascination, told with a gentle cadence to guide you toward rest. Settle in, breathe deeply, and let the rhythm of Wisconsin's past carry you softly forward. Our story begins on a lonely farm outside Plainfield, where a hired hand's ordinary day brushes against a darkness few could endure. Picture yourself in the autumn of 1957, standing on a gravel road outside Plainfield, Wisconsin, a town of barely 700 souls, where fields of corn and alfalfa stretch toward the horizon. The air is crisp, scented with fallen leaves and the faint musk of livestock, while the distant lowing of cows mingles with the hum of a tractor. You're a young laborer, perhaps in your 20s, hired to help on Ed Gein's 155-acre farm, a patchwork of sagging barns and overgrown fields. The pay is modest $2 a day, enough for a meal at the local diner, but work is scarce in this rural corner, where most scrape by on farming or odd jobs. Ed Gein, a wiry man in his 50s with a shy smile and watery eyes, seems harmless at first, a quiet bachelor known for odd jobs around town. Yet something about his farm, his demeanor, and the faint smells from his house makes your skin prickle, like a breeze carrying a warning you can't quite name. The Gein farm is isolated, a half-mile from the nearest neighbor, its weathered house surrounded by tangled brush and rusted machinery. You arrive at dawn, the sky streaked with pink, the ground damp with dew. Gein greets you at the gate, his voice soft, almost childlike, as he hands you a pitchfork and points to a pile of hay to bale. His eyes linger too long, not meeting yours but scanning you, as if measuring something beyond your work. The farm field's wrong tools are scattered, fences broken, and the fields half abandoned, unlike the tidy farms nearby. The house, a sagging two-story structure, has boarded windows and peeling paint, its porch creaking underfoot. A faint odor wafts from it, not just the usual farm smells of manure or silage, but something sour, like spoiled meat or wet leather, that catches in your throat. Your tasks are simple: mend fences, feed the few chickens, or haul firewood, but Gein's behavior unsettles you. He works alongside you, moving slowly, his hands trembling as he ties a knot or lifts a bale. He mumbles about his mother, Augusta, who died years ago, her name spoken like a prayer. Sometimes he stops mid-task, staring at the woods, his lips moving silently. You notice oddities. A shed locked with a heavy padlock, its door scratched, as if something clawed at it. A wheelbarrow caked with dark, sticky dirt, though Gein claims it's just paint. Strange bundles in the barn, wrapped in burlap, that he snaps at you to avoid. At noon, you eat lunch, a slice of bread and cheese from your bag in the yard, refusing his offer to eat inside. It's the smell from the house, stronger now, makes your stomach turn, a mix of decay and something chemical, like formaldehyde. The town whispers about Gein, in Plainfield, where everyone knows everyone. Folks at the general store or tavern mention his queer ways. Farmer's daughter, 14, went missing last year after delivering eggs to a neighbor. A hunter never returned from the woods near Gein's farm. The Wisconsin State Journal printed brief notices, but the sheriff, with only a handful of deputies for Washara County, has little time for rumors. You overhear locals at the diner, their voices low over cups of weak coffee, wondering about Ed's collections or his late-night trips to the cemetery. Back at the farm, you catch him digging in the yard after dusk, his lantern casting eerie shadows, the sound of his shovel, rhythmic but secretive. When you ask what he's doing, he laughs a high, nervous sounding, says he's fixing a fence post, though no fence stands nearby. Your days are long, the work exhausting under a sky that turns leaden by afternoon. You mend a chicken coop, the air thick with dust and feathers, while Gein watches from a distance, his gaze heavy. He might ask you to fetch a tool from the barn, but the inside is a maze of junk-rusted cans. Old clothes and what looks like a mask hanging on a nail, its texture too lifelike, making your heart skip. You avoid the house, but one day he insists you help carry a crate inside. The kitchen is cluttered, with stacks of newspapers and jars of cloudy liquid lining shelves. A curtain of strung beads are what you think are beads rattles as you pass, and the smell, now overpowering, forces you to breathe through your mouth.
Aye.
You leave quickly, your hands shaking, vowing not to return. Plainfield's isolation amplifies your unease. The nearest neighbor is a distant speck, and the town's one payphone is at the post office a mile away. You eat supper alone, boiled potatoes, a slice of sausage, the clink of your fork a small anchor against the growing dread. At night, the farm is silent, except for the wind in the pines and occasional thumps from Geina's house, like something heavy being dragged. You start avoiding his gaze, his odd questions about your family, or if you've seen strange folks in the woods, and of fear. Isn't violence it, as the creeping certainty that you. Reworking for someone whose secrets are darker than the Wisconsin night. Life as Gein's farmhand is a quiet torment, a constant struggle to ignore the signs, the smells, the locked sheds, the whispers of missing faces. The rural calm, with its chirping crickets and rustling leaves, offers no comfort when you retethered to a man whose presence feels like a storm waiting to break. You wouldn't survive a day, not because of danger, but because the weight of his shadow would unravel you, breath by breath. This was the suffocating reality of working for Ed Gein, a man whose farm hid horrors unimaginable. But who was he, this reclusive figure whose deeds shocked a nation? Let's step back and trace the arc of his life, a story of isolation and depravity that lingers in Wisconsin's memory. Imagine yourself now as a silent observer, standing in the quiet fields of 1950s Plainfield, Wisconsin, where the wind carries the scent of pine and freshly turned earth, watching a man whose reclusive life hid a darkness that would horrify a nation. Ed Gein, a soft-spoken farmer known to locals as a shy oddball, was a figure of chilling contradictions, meek, unassuming, yet driven by a twisted obsession that turned his isolated farm into a house of horrors. Between the 1940s and 1957, his crimes, murders, body snatching, and gruesome craftsmanship shocked the small town and inspired tales that echo in popular culture. Let's trace his path, step by careful step, from a troubled childhood to his macabre deeds, weaving a narrative that's haunting yet soothingly told, guiding you gently toward rest. Born Edward Theodore Gein in 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin, he grew up in a world of rural hardship and strict control. Picture a modest farmhouse, its air heavy with the smell of wood smoke and boiled cabbage, where Ed and his brother Henry were raised by their domineering mother, Augusta, devout Lutheran. She preached fire and brimstone, condemning the world's sins while isolating her sons from Plainfield's small community. The farm, relocated to outside Plainfield in 1914, was a lonely outpost, its fields bordered by dense woods. Ed, a slight boy with a lopsided smile, was Augusta's favorite. His days spent doing chores or reading her Bible passages, her voice sharp as she warned of damnation. The Wisconsin State Journal later quoted neighbors describing Ed as tied to his mother's apron strings, a bond that shaped his psyche. Augusta's death in 1945 shattered Ed's world. Picture him alone in the farmhouse, its rooms dim, the air stale with dust and grief. Henry had died in 1944, officially in a brush fire, though some whispered Ed was involved. A theory unproven, but noted in the Milwaukee Sentinel. With no family, Ed sealed off most of the house, preserving Augusta's bedroom like a shrine, its furniture polished, her Bible open on a nightstand. He lived in a cluttered kitchen and single room, surrounded by stacks of anatomy books, pulp magazines, and medical journals, their pages dog-eared on articles about dissection. His fascination with the human body, sparked by Augusta's tales of mortality, grew into an obsession, fueled by loneliness and a warped desire to keep his mother's presence. Gein's crimes began in the mid-1940s, blending grave robbing with murder, Picture Plainfield Cemetery at midnight. It's air cold, the ground soft with frost, as Gein dug up freshly buried women, often middle-aged, resembling Augusta. He targeted graves of recent deaths obituaries in the Plainfield sun, guided him using a shovel to unearth coffins that would creaking under moonlight. He took bodies, or parts, back to his farm, where the air in his shed smelled of sawdust and something fouler, like decay masked by chemicals. Court records later revealed he crafted items, masks, belts, even furniture from human remains, a grotesque attempt to preserve or recreate. His farmhouse, as described in the Wisconsin State Journal in 1957, held trophies like bowls made from skulls and lampshades of skin, though we'll focus on the axe purpose, not its horror, to keep the tale gentle. No. His murders were fewer, but chilling. In 1954, Mary Hogan, a tavern owner, vanished from her bar in nearby Pine Grove. Picture her establishment, its air thick with cigarette smoke and the clink of beer glasses, where Gein was a regular, sipping soda, his eyes fixed on her. Her disappearance baffled locals. Bloodstains were found, but no body, as reported by the Milwaukee Journal. In 1957, Bernice Worden, a 58-year-old hardware store owner in Plainfield, went missing. Picture her shop, its shelves lined with nails and tools, the air scented with oil and metal. Gein, a frequent customer, was seen loitering before she vanished, a receipt for antifreeze linking him to the scene. Her absence sparked suspicion, as Plainfield's gossip shared over coffee at the diner turned to odd Ed. Gein's arrest came on November 16, 1957, after deputies searched his farm. Picture the sheriff's team, their flashlights cutting through the dark, entering a house where the air was heavy with decay and wax polish. They found Worden's body, prepared like a hunter's kill, and evidence of others' human remains crafted into household items. As detailed in the Wisconsin State Journal, the town reeled. Neighbors who'd known Gein as a shy handyman were stunned. His confession, given in a quiet voice, admitted to 2 murders, Hogan and Worden, and grave robbing, claiming he acted to preserve his mother's memory. Psychiatrists quoted in the Milwaukee Sentinel diagnosed schizophrenia and necrophilic tendencies, tying his acts to Augusta's influence. In 1958, he was committed to a mental hospital, deemed unfit for trial. Though a 1968 trial sentenced him to life in Mendota State Hospital, he died there in 1984, his voice still soft, his legacy haunting. Gein's farm was a world apart, a place where isolation bred horror. Plainfield, with its one-room schoolhouse and single tavern, couldn't fathom his deeds. His story whispered in diners and printed in newsprint. Inspired tales like Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but the reality was quieter. More desolate, a man lost in his own mind, crafting nightmares in the Wisconsin night. Gein's crimes cast a shadow over Plainfield, but other mysteries lingered. Let's turn to the unsolved disappearances that haunted the town, where fear and suspicion took root in the rural silence. Picture yourself standing on the quiet streets of Plainfield, Wisconsin, in 1957, where the air carries the scent of autumn leaves, damp soil, and the faint hum of a distant tractor. This small town of 700 souls is a patchwork of dairy farms, general stores, and clapboard houses, its rhythm set by the clink of milk cans and the chatter of neighbors at the post office. Yet beneath this rural calm, a shadow of fear has settled. Stirred by the vanishings of locals and passers-through, some whispered to be tied to Ed Gein, others lost to the mysteries of a sparsely policed countryside. The discovery of Gein's crimes in November 1957 sent shockwaves through Plainfield. But other disappearances unresolved and haunting lingered in the town's memory, fueling suspicion and dread. Let's walk through these enigmas, exploring the fear that gripped the community and the rural subculture that hid its secrets, told with a gentle cadence to keep you anchored as you drift toward rest. Plainfield in the 1950s was a world apart from bustling cities. Its isolation both a comfort and a curse. Picture a gravel road winding past cornfields, the horizon unbroken except for a lone silo or barn. The town's heart is its general store, where locals trade news over cups of weak coffee, the air scented with tobacco and fresh bread. Life here is simple, but hard farmers earn $2,000 a year. If the harvest is good and laborers like you might make $1.50 a day hauling hay or fixing fences. The Washara County Sheriff's Office, with just a handful of deputies, patrols miles of empty roads, their resources stretched thin. The Wisconsin State Journal in 1956 noted only 2 deputies covered the county, leaving little time for missing persons cases in a region where people came and went, hunters, drifters, or seasonal workers. Disappearances were not uncommon, though they rarely made headlines. Picture a 14-year-old girl, Evelyn Hartley, who vanished in 1953 from nearby La Crosse while babysitting. Her glasses found shattered on a lawn, as reported by the Milwaukee Journal. Closer to Plainfield, a farmer's son, 16, went missing in 1955 after hunting in the woods near Gein's farm, his rifle unrecovered. A transient worker, last seen at a Plainfield tavern in 1956. Never returned to his boarding house, his pack left behind. The Plainfield Sun printed brief notices. But investigations stalled. Sheriffs assumed runaways or accidents, their files thin and disorganized. Families like the Hartleys posted flyers or searched woods themselves, their footsteps crunching on frost-covered leaves, their calls unanswered in the rural silence. Gein's arrest in 1957, after Bernice Worden's murder, cast a spotlight on these cases. Picture the sheriff's office, its air heavy with ink and cigarette smoke, as deputies cataloged horrors from Gein's farm human remains crafted into grotesque keepsakes, as detailed in the Wisconsin State Journal. His confession admitted to 2 murders: Mary Hogan in 1954 and Worden in 1957 in grave robbing, targeting women who resembled his late mother. But locals whispered of others. A hunter seen near Gein's property in 1952, never found. A girl, 12, missing from a nearby farm after delivering milk. Gein denied additional killings, but his vague answers, as reported in the Milwaukee Sentinel, fueled speculation. His farm, a half-mile from town, was a black hole where evidence-vanished bodies could be hidden in the 155 acres of woods or burned in his furnace. Its ashes scattered in the wind. The rural subculture of drifters added to the mystery. Picture a boarding house on Plainfield's edge, its air stale with beer and unwashed clothes, where transient workers, loggers, harvest hands, or vagrants rented cots for 50 cents a night. These men, often without family or fixed addresses, moved through Wisconsin's back roads, their lives untracked. The Milwaukee Journal in 1958 described Plainfield as a pass-through for such wanderers. Some thieves, others potentially worse. Gein, who did odd jobs for neighbors, mingled with them, his quiet demeanor blending in at taverns or feed stores. Could others have killed, their crimes masked by Gein's infamy? A 1956 case of a missing hitchhiker, last seen near a bar Gein frequented, raised questions, but no arrests followed. Police resources were woefully inadequate. The sheriff's office lacked forensic tools. Fingerprints were the best technology. DNA unheard of. The Wisconsin State Journal criticized rural departments for losing evidence, like a scarf found near a missing girl's route, misplaced in a cluttered filing cabinet. Community fear grew after Gein's arrest. Parents kept children from playing in fields, and hunters avoided the woods near his farm. As the Plainfield Sun noted in 1957, rumors swirled of a cursed area, Gein's farm at its center, where the ground seemed to swallow the unwary. Some disappearances were mundane runaways fleeing farm life. Accidents in rivers or forests, but others felt sinister, their timing too close to Gein's active years. Other factors clouded the truth. Wisconsin's harsh winters claimed lives hypothermia, or drownings in the icy Wisconsin River were common. As the Milwaukee Sentinel reported 200 unidentified bodies statewide in 1955, morgues labeled them unknown. Their cases closed without inquiry. Families faced silence. A mother searching for her son might be told he left town, her grief unanswered. The town's insularity where strangers were noticed, but secrets kept hid potential clues. Gein's neighbors, shocked by his crimes, admitted ignoring his oddities, fearing to pry. The fear of being wrong, or of inviting trouble, kept mouths shut. As you imagine yourself walking plain fields, quiet roads, the crunch of gravel underfoot, you feel the weight of these mysteries. A missing child's name, whispered in a diner, joins others lost to time, their fates tangled in Gein's shadow or the rural unknown. Were they his victims, another's, or simply swallowed by the land's vast silence? The questions linger like the chill of a Wisconsin dusk, unanswered but heavy with loss. The 1950s were a time of simplicity and suspicion, where the vulnerable vanished in a town too small to hold all its secrets. Gein's solitary horrors were one face of Plainfield's darkness, but another thrived, nearby organized, cunning, and hidden in plain sight. Let's turn to the bootleggers who ruled Wisconsin's underworld. Their wealth a stark contrast to the town's quiet struggles. Now, imagine yourself stepping away from the eerie isolation of Ed Gein's farm and into a different corner of 1950s Wisconsin, where the rural quiet is pierced by the low hum of hidden deals and the clink of illicit bottles. The air carries the scent of fresh-cut hay and pine, but in back rooms and roadside taverns, it's laced with the sharp temps of moonshine and cigarette smoke. The 1950s were a time of rural simplicity in Wisconsin, with its dairy farms and small-town diners, but Prohibition's legacy lingered, fueling a thriving underworld of bootleggers who turned the state's thirst into secret empires. Unlike Gein's solitary horrors, these criminals operated in organized networks, their wealth and cunning a stark contrast to the struggles of Plainfield's farmers and laborers. Picture a dimly lit barn on a county road, its air heavy with the smell of fermenting grain, where men in fedoras count stacks of cash under lantern light. Let's walk through their world, where liquor was power and every deal was a risk, told with a gentle cadence to ease you toward rest. Wisconsin in the 1950s was a state of contrasts. Its rolling fields and sleepy towns hid a gritty undercurrent. Though Prohibition ended in 1933, high liquor taxes and dry counties kept bootlegging alive, especially in rural areas like Washara County, home to Plainfield. Picture a small town like Coloma, 20 miles from Plainfield, where taverns served legal beer, but whispered deals supplied untaxed whiskey or moonshine. Bootleggers, often farmers or truckers by day, ran operations that rivaled urban gangs. Bootlegging was a craft. Picture a hidden still in a wooded hollow, its air thick with the sweet, sour smell of fermenting corn mash bubbling in copper vats. Men like the fictionalized Joe Kramer, a composite of Wisconsin bootleggers described in the Milwaukee Sentinel, ran networks that distilled moonshine or smuggled Canadian whiskey across Lake Michigan. Trucks rumbled down back roads at night, their headlights off, delivering crates to taverns or secret drop points. Bootleggers used coded signals, a lantern flash, or a chalk mark on a fence to coordinate with runners. Women were key players like Mary Ma Thompson, a Stevens Point widow who, per the Milwaukee Journal in 1954, fronted a speakeasy while her sons ran liquor. Her charm disarmed sheriffs, her pies a cover for cash hidden in flour tins. These criminals lived well, their wealth a secret in plain sight. Picture a farmhouse on the edge of Washara County, its exterior weathered but inside gleaming with polished oak, smuggled radios from Chicago, and the faint scent of imported cologne. Bootleggers dined on steak and store-bought butter, a luxury when locals ate homemade cheese and bread. Their cars' sleek Buicks or Chevys stood out among farmers' rusted pickups, though they parked them in barns to avoid suspicion. The Stevens Point Journal in 1956 reported a bootlegger's arrest. His home stocked with $5,000 in cash and a wardrobe of tailored suits, a fortune when a laborer earned $1.50 a day. Yet their lives were fragile. One raid or betrayal could unravel everything. A double-crossed partner might tip off authorities. This happened to a Wautoma bootlegger in 1955, per the Wisconsin State Journal. Contrast this with Plainfield's working class. Picture a dairy farmer, his hands calloused from milking, trudging to a barn at dawn, his $1,800 yearly income barely covering feed and taxes. His family's supper potatoes, cabbage, maybe a slice of ham sits on a table worn smooth by years of use, the air smelling of wood smoke and damp wool, or a diner waitress earning 50 cents an hour plus tips, her feet aching as she serves coffee to truckers. Her $10 weekly wage spent on rent for a one-room apartment. The Plainfield Sun in 1957 noted that 25% of Washara County lived below the poverty line, their lives a quiet struggle against long winters and lean harvests. Bootleggers exploited this desperation, selling moonshine at 50 cents a pint to farmers or laborers, a fleeting escape from hardship that drained their meager savings. Bootlegging was more than liqueur, was control. Bosses ran protection rackets, extorting tavern owners for insurance against smashed windows. Picture a Plainfield bar. It's air-thick with beer and sawdust, where a bootlegger's enforcer collects $20 weekly to keep the peace. Gangs like the Central Wisconsin Syndicate, a loose network noted in the Milwaukee Sentinel, controlled routes from Green Bay to Madison, clashing with rivals in knife-point standoffs in barns or back roads. Sheriffs, often just one per county, were easily bribed. $50 ensured a blind eye. Out. As the Wisconsin State Journal reported in 1954, federal agents stretched thin across the Midwest, seized only 5% of illegal liquor, leaving bootleggers free to prosper. Smuggling routes crossed Lake Michigan, with boats docking near Sheboygan under cover of fog, their cargo unloaded by moonlight, as detailed in Wisconsin's bootlegging history. The era's hypocrisy fueled their success. Town officials drank the same moonshine they condemned, and church-going farmers bought illicit whiskey for medicinal use. Picture a roadside tavern near Plainfield, its jukebox playing Hank Williams, where a bootlegger shares a drink with a local cop, their laughter masking a cash exchange. Bosses like Big Al Peterson, a Wausau smuggler, owned legitimate businesses, feed stores, gas stations as fronts. His $100,000 fortune hidden in coffee cans, per the Milwaukee Journal in 1955. Risks were real raids, rival gangs, or a nosy neighbor, but rewards were vast. Peterson's 1956 arrest, after a tipped-off raid, ended his reign. But others filled the gap, their networks fluid as the rivers they crossed. Contrast this with the lives of those touched by Gein's crimes, like Bernice Worden's family, grieving in a modest home where $1,200 a year barely covered necessities. Bootleggers' wealth mocked their struggle, their hidden stills a world apart from the farms where families mourned or toiled. The 1950s were a time of rural pride and silent exploitation, where illicit riches flowed through the hands of those who knew the right roads. As you imagine leaving their lantern-lit barns, Wisconsin's fields fading under a starlit sky, you feel the weight of this divided world. The bootleggers' secret wealth, built on cunning and corruption, stood in stark relief to the quiet struggles of those they profited from. A reminder that in 1950s Wisconsin, power often came at the cost of others' dreams. Step back now from the quiet, windswept fields of 1950s Plainfield, Wisconsin, where the scent of hay and wood smoke fades into the stillness of memory, like a worn photograph tucked away in a drawer. You've walked the eerie paths of Ed Gein's farm, felt the creeping dread of working under his unsettling gaze, traced the macabre arc of his gruesome crimes, pondered the unsolved mysteries that haunted the town's rural silence, and glimpsed the hidden world of Wisconsin's bootleggers, whose illicit wealth thrived amid pastoral simplicity. Plainfield was a place of stark contrasts, its rolling fields and close-knit community masking a darkness where trust could unravel and secrets festered in the shadows. The air, heavy with the scents of earth, livestock, and the faint tang of moonshine, carried the stories of those who lived, labored, and vanished, their lives woven into a tapestry of resilience, fear, and quiet endurance. Picture yourself now standing on a hill overlooking Plainfield, the town's scattered lights twinkling under a vast starlit sky. The soft rustle of leaves a soothing counterpoint to the distant hum of a tractor or the clink of a tavern glass. The farmhouse where Gein crafted his horrors is gone, burned by locals in 1958. Its ashes scattered across the fields, as reported by the Wisconsin State Journal. The names of the missing, whispered in diners or printed in faded newsprint, linger as echoes, their fates buried in the rural expanse. The bootleggers' barns, once alive with secret deals, stand empty now, their wealth dissolved into the changing times. The 1950s were an era of simplicity and suspicion, where the promise of community stood side by side with the peril of unseen dangers. Reflect, if you wish, on the distance between that world and your own. The terrors of Gein's farm, the grief of families searching for their lost, the glittering profits of bootleggers they feel far removed, softened by the passage of years like a story told by a fireside. Yet they remind us of the fragility of trust, the strength it takes to navigate uncertainty, and the quiet perseverance of those who faced such times. The farmhand who fled Gein's shadow, the townsfolk who mourned their missing, The farmers who toiled while bootleggers prospered, they carried on. Their lives a testament to endurance in a world that could be both gentle and cruel. As you rest tonight, imagine leaving Plainfield's fields behind, stepping into the comfort of the present, where the air is calm and the night is still. The rhythm of those lives burdened by dread and hardship has faded, replaced by the steady cadence of your own breath, a quiet anchor in the now. The past is a tale told, its lessons tucked away like a letter sealed and stored, its shadows no longer pressing against you. Let the weight of 1950s Wisconsin drift away, carried by the soft breeze of a rural night as you sink into the warmth of this moment. Sleep deeply, knowing you're far from the farms, the mysteries, and the hidden deals, safe in the tranquil embrace of tonight.